Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlot Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel. Today, I am joined by my loser, degenerate co-host, Tanner Extra. And today, we're
What?
here to talk about Thunderbolts.
Oh,
Tanner, it's a movie. We can talk about movie.
what?
It doesn't
Oh,
matter how much of a
okay.
loser you are. We get to talk about a movie
Oh,
today. Does that feel better?
yay.
You feeling better, buddy?
Okay. I guess so.
We're here to talk about Thunderbolts, but of course, if you want to talk to us about this movie, you can join our Discord server or leave your thoughts in the comments, which is down below. Below the descriptions where the comments are. I just want to make sure everyone gets a little lay of the land.
Everyone understands the layout of a
Yeah.
YouTube
I mean,
page.
after the new
Yeah.
update, things move around a
Oh,
little
well,
bit.
they shuffle it all up. It's crazy. It's crazy.
But Tanner, we get to review
Mhm.
Thunderbolts now. It's a great honor, great privilege to
A
have you
great
with
pleasure.
me.
Yes.
Tell me your thoughts on this movie.
Tucker, I don't know. Thunderbolts is good. A lot of people are, I think, going to like this more than I did.
Sure.
A lot of people are already singing the praises. The MCU is back, etc., etc. We've hopped back on the horse.
Yeah.
Even though I'm like, well, didn't all you guys just like Deadpool and Wolverine like a year ago? I digress.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's true. People still think that it's November 2023 and Marvels just came out.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that is a distinct feeling. But I understand that Deadpool and Wolverine felt like a little bit of a universe divergence and everything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Here
yeah.
we're back to the MCU
Oh yeah.
standard. And what I mean by that is that we are correcting course, which is not something that is, especially unique to say, but I think it feels like what this movie is in a lot of ways. It is very character focused, as
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about. Um, I like that it's a little bit more pared down. We're
Mm.
not doing
Yeah.
big blue laser shooting into the sky or anything like that. You can
Yeah.
feel it's a little bit more grounded, a little bit more visceral,
Big
which I
black laser
like.
shooting to the ground.
Well, hey, exactly. And yeah, I think generally there's some clunkiness to the script and the story potentially.
Sure.
But on the whole, like you're gonna have a good time with it. I had a fine time with it. I think it's good.
Yeah. So for the first time in my life,
Yeah,
I saw a movie twice in one day on its
that's
opening
right.
day.
You did.
I went at 3:30, which was the earliest showtime. I went by myself. I sat there, watched it in IMAX. I'm like, God dang,
Ah,
that's a cool Marvel movie. Look at these characters and all
uh-huh.
this stuff going on. And then I'm like, I'm planning on seeing it with my brother tomorrow, but for whatever reason,
Yeah.
he skipped class last night. Okay, that's
Okay.
fine. And I'm like, hey, we can
Wanna see
we can go
Thunderbolts?
now. So about an hour after I walked out of the theater to see Thunderbolts, I went to see Thunderbolts.
Oh,
Which
sure.
I honestly don't think I've ever done before. It's like I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
think
yeah.
I've ever seen a movie twice in one day before. I can't think of
Sure.
another time it's happened.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but I really liked it that first time. But on the second time, and I'm excited to talk to you about this, I
Hmm.
really think that this is a really impressively tight movie. I mean, I'm surprised to say with a movie of that is pulling in this many disparate plot threads and B characters from all sorts of different side projects.
Hmm.
How coherent this movie feels. It's focused on one central theme. I think for the majority of the cast, they all work really really well together. And there aren't like extra plot threads. This is like a straight down the line, like you're following like
Yeah.
one core narrative
It's
movie, and I'm like,
it's
whoa,
also
that
yeah.
doesn't happen in Marvel movies.
It
Usually, all sorts of
it's
shit
not
going
really
on.
yeah, it's not really concerned with setting up four things at the same time.
Yeah.
This is well, as we'll talk about with the post credit scene, kind of setting up one thing
Yes.
at one time, I guess.
Yes, and with that focus and with the unique focus on a theme and like kind of an emotional message more so than
Yeah.
other Marvel movies are, and I think some really excellent performances. I think great comedy, unique and very solid action, decent cinematography, a lot of practical effects, not a lot of like CGI nonsense in this movie.
Hmm.
I am completely in agreement with the MCU is back. This is a movie that is emblematic of why I fell in love with the Marvel movies and why I felt they were movie magic to me when I was first growing up, which is movies like Iron Man and Captain America: The First Avenger and The Avengers, these and Guardians of the Galaxy. These movies that
Hmm.
are bombastic and interesting, but they're filled with characters that have a lot of heart, and that is what this movie is to me. Is if it turns to Marvel movies with heart of characters that care about one another and squabble, but ultimately come together at the end. And we got like Guardians 3, I think is another great example of that. But
Yeah.
I think that Thunderbolts is really excellent. And on that second watch, all the things that I like had like mini squabbles and like I'm like this doesn't
Hmm.
really make a lot of sense, but I can push it aside. Watching the second time, I'm like, no, actually, there's a lot of, like, if you really pay attention to the script and stuff, like, there's actually a lot of answers to these things I thought were issues. So
Sure.
I think this is an amazing movie.
Okay, sure, sure. Tucker, should we start with the our cast of antisocial delinquents,
Yeah.
the Thunderbolts themselves?
Oh,
Let's
I
talk
thought
about
you were talking
Florence
about
Pugh.
us. Oh.
Oh
Oh,
well. Yeah,
oh.
no, Tucker. I'm talking about the new one of the new hot faces of Hollywood, Florence Pugh.
Yeah,
In her role as Yelena Belova here, the main character of the film.
absolutely. Yeah.
We open the film with her, and I mean, the thing you're talking about, the very clear thematic ideas largely live in her, I
Hmm.
would say,
Yeah.
from her opening sort of narration, where she is saying there's an emptiness in her that after her sister Natasha Black Widow died, that she feels unfulfilled by life
Spoilers, by the way.
generally, and
Spoilers
she.
for Endgame.
Oh, sorry, my mistake. I know a lot of people haven't didn't go to see that one, so I do apologize. But no, but she's just sort of going through the motions of taking on these CIA Black Ops missions
Yeah.
across the world.
Hmm.
And I think that, it's not just that opening narration. I think a lot of things in Florence Pugh's performance, especially in that opening scene, sort of deliver on that. Like, she is
Yeah.
effectively, like, yawning as she takes out all these guys with guns in this Malaysian high-rise laboratory or whatever.
Yeah.
And she remains quite good throughout the film. She is the beating heart of this film. She
Yeah.
carries, her weight comedically and dramatically, I would say.
Sure.
And I think Marvel feels very good, and all the creators there feel very good about having a very assured actor, very assured shoulders like Pugh to rest these things on.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of a surprise to me to watch through this movie and realize that it's less of an ensemble piece than I expected. I think
Yes.
back to Guardians 1 or to the Avengers, which are very much pulling in these different perspectives and trying to balance them. Of course, in both those cases, there is a primary character, but the Thunderbolts as a team-up movie is much more about the story of Yelena Belova than most team-up movies are, and that is. I think it's mostly a pro because I think that the best performance in this movie is Florence Pugh. I think she might actually be giving one of the best performances in the MCU. Period. I mean, she's really really like turning on the emotional juice here.
36 movies and a handful of TV shows to sort through. I don't know if I can do that off the top of my head, but sure.
Yeah. But she's really really strong, and also thematically, again, she brings a lot of value to the movie. I think that the way that all the other characters and their personalities and their histories build on top of that theme, I supports it very well. But yeah, I'm very glad that they made this choice because again, this movie feels surprisingly focused, and I think that is definitely one area where that decision was made of like where we want this movie to be about this. We have these characters to work with. Who best exemplifies that? Okay, it's Yelena. Let's focus in on her. That, of course, does mean that not every character gets the same amount of plot level relevance or character development as she does. But I think on the creative level, to make this movie feel focused, where it could otherwise be like a bunch of grab bag superhero ideas, having a central protagonist whose emotional journey we're really following helps keep this movie feel very, very grounded.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. My only thing is if we want to get to the rest of the team, like you mentioned, is that it's not super ensemble focused. It is headed up largely by Florence Pugh and then David Harbour to a certain extent as well, though he's in a opening scene and then drops out until like basically the beginning of the second act,
Correct.
effectively.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say, and I also said this is less of an ensemble piece. Outside of that last the spoilers by the way, outside of the last act that has Yelena on her own dealing with her own demons, she's never alone in this movie, but past the point when they're all in the bunker together. And so it is a one character perspective focused movie in a surprising way, I would say, but like it's still an ensemble piece. Like basically every scene they are together. Everyone is together.
True,
in this movie.
but my thing therein is that I think because all of our characters, like you said, maybe the writers or the the creative heads at Marvel Studios sort of combed through. It was like, okay, who are the characters that relate to the central theme of what we're trying to do here, or alternatively, they looked at the characters that they want for going ahead on a
Yeah, of
particular
course.
team, and just like, well, how can we make this work?
Yeah,
Because
and,
I
and there's
do
definitely a
feel
tier list in this movie of characters
yes,
that are like given attention.
because I do feel as though the less that there is like you said, there's a hierarchy, and I don't know. Some of them feel a little flimsier. I
Sure.
think, especially if you get past Yelena and Alexei, they start to get a little flimsy, a
Hmm.
little one note, perhaps. Um, we can talk about like John Walker, of course, who
Mm-hmm.
gets a little bit of time, a little bit of
Yeah.
attention paid to him in the narrative. But then you get to like Ghost, and
Yeah.
you're like, well, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
what's her deal? It's all just kind of like I have a tragic backstory. Well, I have a tragic backstory. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
they reflexively sort of make a joke about that, about how they're all trauma dumping on each other. But
Yeah.
like, ultimately, it does make it feel like, I don't know, if we're trying to do a Avengers or a Guardians of the
Yeah.
Galaxy, all those characters have tragedy in their backstory to some extent, but it's not like the things that defines them, and it doesn't feel as samey, I would say, in those
Sure.
films.
No, I that's definitely true. Though, and I don't know if this is necessarily a good justification for
Sure.
the criticism that you just levied, which I think is totally fair, and especially in the case of someone like Ghost, so we'll get more
Yeah.
into in a little bit. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but they're not the Avengers. They're not the Guardians. And I do
True.
think that in the from the angle of this movie being more emotional and more message driven than those other movies. Not necessarily that Avengers or Guardians weren't emotional in their own ways.
Uh huh.
But I I think it is actually kind of interesting that they choose a group of characters that are all very similar, actually, in terms of their backstory and their
Hmm.
personalities and their power set. Uh, and I think it does make them bond a little bit quicker, right? Is they see themselves in each other
Yeah,
very
that's
quickly,
true.
and they
That's
share
true.
this backstory, and it's like, okay, yeah, I had a bad backstory, I had a bad backstory, I had a bad backstory, and then
Uh
because the theme of this movie is the power of friendship, ostensibly, but
huh.
in defeating isolation and in preventing
Yeah.
yourself from feeling alone. And I
Yeah.
really want to get into that more, but I do think that having all these characters that are incredibly lonely, that have incredibly traumatic past, um, and putting them all together and having them see eye to eye and be like they're all kind of the same kind of guy who's had this crazy shit going on, and they've built up their emotional defenses so high that they are always lashing out against people and have very little connections, and most of them no connections in their life. And so when they are forced to work together and they each, even if it's reflexively, share their backstories, like, okay, I did this, and it's like, and they're all, but in their mind, I think you can see their gears turning of like, oh, I'm not alone. Oh, there are other people who have gone through similarly terrible things and have come out the other side, and now we are working together. And so I think that
Yeah.
there's a balance there where sometimes these quote unquote exposition dumps, especially because we're having to
Yes.
tell an audience about
There
C
is a
tier characters,
there's a fair number of those in the film, which
that
is
can
kind
feel a
of
little
like, yeah.
ham-fisted, but
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
actually do think on a thematic level, it's actually kind of important to have a group of very similar characters be forced to work together rather than, I mean, Guardians and Avengers, like, as disparate kinds of characters as you can get, which I love, but this is a different kind of team.
Yeah, yeah, it's a fair point. I mean, even, but I think of Guardians like, yeah, all those characters also have tragic backstories, and
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
all,
true.
they're all prickly characters who don't quite get along, but found family. Yeah, they fill an empty role in each other's lives, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But I think that they in their interactions could still manage to feel unique,
Oh yeah, sure.
whereas I didn't feel the exact same way about the team in Thunderbolts.
Yeah,
You have
definitely.
your main character in Yelena, of course. You have effectively your comedic relief character in Alexei
Alexi,
in
yeah.
Red Guardian, and then like I don't know, like let's talk about John Walker here for a
Yeah,
second. Let's talk Walker. Let's talk the walk here.
yeah,
Um, I don't know, like I don't think he was given enough time in the
sure.
film. If we wanted to really try and do something with his character, we lightly brush past it a time or two.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of replaying a scene that we see in Falcon and the Winter Soldier with his wife and his
Mm.
baby, correct?
No, I think it's a slightly different perspective on it, or like a slightly.
I see.
I
Oh
honestly,
well,
Tanner,
yeah.
here's the thing. I think because you've been
My,
seeing the trailer for this movie for so long and
oh
watching him like
sure.
doom scrolling on his phone, you've like
Yeah.
internalized
That
it.
is probably true,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
It's probably true.
Because
But
the
no,
end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier is when he's no longer Captain America.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So where was I going? Oh, so I was, but like in his interactions, he is kind of like, I think you in our Discord server, linking in the description, described him as like the heel of the team,
Hmm.
which is true,
Yeah.
but makes him feel kind of one note in his interactions with the team, I would say,
Yeah.
where
Sure.
he's like, "Well, you guys are all stupid, and I'm smart. You guys are all stupid, and I don't like this. I think
Yeah.
this is a dumb plan. We should do my plan."
Hmm.
And he's always kind of doing that. I don't know. Didn't fully work for me as like a compelling member of the team, and then Ghost is just kind of a whatever, really.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Walker is, uh, that is I think that's kind of the point of his character is
Sure.
that again he's built up these defenses, and as we learn, even though he projects being the golden boy, being the guy that has this perfect American family to go back to
Yeah.
because of his defensiveness, because of his aggression as a person,
Hmm.
he's pushed that away from him, and so he's interacting with again for what, let's just say an hour and a half of this 2 hour long movie. These characters don't really know one another. This is their first time meeting, almost across the
Hmm.
board except for Bucky and Walker. His to all of them, they're building up their ideal persona, right? What do they want
Yeah.
other people to see them as? They want each other to see each other uh as the very skilled
The
assassin,
ultimate
the
badass, the
ultimate
lone
badass.
wolf who
Yeah,
doesn't need any money. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And so I think it makes a lot of sense that, especially in Walker's case, because we actually do know his character. We've spent a solid amount of time with
Of
him
course.
in that show, which was 4 years ago. But,
Huh. The
but
time flies.
but he's a character that I found so memorable, and I do feel like this tracks for him, especially once you learn the fact that he has ostensibly lost his family. Not that they're dead, but he has pushed them away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That
Because
he is,
because he's an asshole. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, yes. That uh, in his isolation, he still wants to be the leader. He still wants to be the guy
Right.
making these shots and these calls because he does have an inflated ego. And so when he is, I actually think the who's making the plan dynamic of this movie, I think is really fun, and
Hmm.
especially in John's case, because he's the one with, frankly, he's the one with skill working with others, which is ironic because he
Uh-huh.
is a military guy,
Well,
and so I think
yeah.
that's why he like not only because he's got an inflated ego, but he does step in. Excuse me, don't get on my computer.
Hello.
He's the one that steps in and is like, no, okay, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing this,
Mm.
because he is like, no, I'm the one with the experience here, like working with a team, like working with others, like, but
Mm.
he's not very good at it.
Yeah, fair. Let's talk Bucky, and then let's do a little Bucky and Bob talk here, Tucker,
Sure.
because with Bob we can get into the larger plot of the film.
Yeah. Oh, and also I
Um,
agree. Ghost is fine. You know, she's there.
Yeah, she's a whatever.
Yeah. The problem is, unlike two other unlike Walker, who we did, as I said, spend a good amount
Yep.
of time with in Falcon and the Winter
Yep.
Soldier, and Bucky, who we spent a lot of time with across the whole history of the MCU. We don't have that connection to Ghost. I think they forewent a lot of the character moments for Bucky and John. Because we've actually seen them have character moments before, and
True.
so they're like, okay, we want this to be about Yelena, and then we don't need to really, quote unquote, really bother with these guys, because if you are a fan of the MCU, you know the journeys they've gone through. Ghost, like, yeah, I guess I know the story she's gone through, but like, I don't know, I don't really care. Don't
she
know that well.
reiterates it in roughly a sentence in this movie.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like I was tested on as a child to contain my powers to a physical form. Yeah, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And,
But
and
she's
that's when they're doing that.
like at a certain point, I do think she's one of the biggest missed opportunities of this movie, because I do feel like on the whole, it's like, okay, I'm really excited to see these characters again, and I'm like,
Mhm.
and I guess Ghost, like, she's there.
And Ghost too.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? You know what I will say about the whole Ghost situation? Hannah John-Kamen gets a whiff in the credits, which is pretty impressive, honestly.
Why? Like,
I don't know.
Is she that
Tucker,
famous?
our,
Why?
our, our friend our friend and I were baffled by this when we saw it in the theater because it's with David Harbour, with Hannah John-Kamen, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, how did she get a whiff?
Yeah.
She's
And
got a
even
damn
like,
good agent.
and Wyatt Russell and Sebastian Stan have to share a credit like
Yeah, they got a
thing
shared
on here.
page.
Yeah,
Crazy stuff. You would think they would do with Sebastian Stan. Anyway, Tucker. Who do we say we were talking about? Oh, it's Sebastian Stan, Bucky.
oh hey,
Um, good.
speak of the soldier.
He literally gets a moment where he gets to show up and everyone cheers, "Yay, it's Bucky!" I mean,
Yeah.
we see him before in the film too. I don't know how receptive or reactive your crowd was. We had a fairly reactive crowd last night when I saw it. And that was a moment where I was like, "Yeah, Bucky's here." I was like, "We saw him like 3 times before this, guys." But he gets to go. He's in Winter Soldier mode at that point because, as we know from Captain America: Brave New World, a movie that definitely came out earlier this year, believe it or not, he is now a congressman. And he's not liking that life too much, Tucker. He's
Yeah.
a little bored by the whole bureaucracy of it all.
Yeah.
Which is, again, something that is lightly grazed upon as a character idea for him. But, like you mentioned, we move past a lot of his stuff
Yeah.
in favor of exploring the other characters. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Sebastian Stan is just like in a short, steady hand in these movies now. He is like a veteran of the MCU at this point, and still holds his own. Still does a good job. Is kind of the handler for the Thunderbolts at this point, and gets his fair share of moments where he's like, I mean, this is my first time like having to do this, so. I don't know. Maybe we just drive a truck through the glass pane window of the building, like stuff like that. I think he works well at. Calling the congressional packets stupid and stuff like that. He can just make these moments work.
Yeah, no, I think he's good in this movie. Watching the first time, I was initially like, man, Bucky's barely in this movie, but that's not true. He's the B plot of the first act of the movie when he is being a congressman watching Val's hearings and doing some like shadowy congressman dealings to try to get Mel on his side and stuff. He is the B plot of that, and then he shows up, he saves everyone, and he's with the team for the rest of the movie. So I don't really know why I thought he wasn't in this movie. I actually heard that criticism in a couple of other reviews as well. I'm like, I don't think that's true. I mean, he's not part of that first core group that we get a little bit more screen time out of. But my problem is that, and I definitely would have wanted. Here's my main criticism with this movie. Again, a movie I very much love, but is that it presents us with, I think, a lot of characters that I want to see more of. And even though this movie is over 2 hours long, there's still space. And as an ensemble movie, there are some characters that get, on a narrative level, a little short-shrifted. Bucky is that, and he's not that, because he does get the congressman element. He does get this sort of, like, espionage political element at the first half of the movie. And then he's there with the team, but I don't think he ever really gels with the team. That's the main issue, is to that point, our 4 other characters and Bob do feel like they've come together. They know each other a little bit better. They've shared each other's backstories. But Bucky is like, he's just the guy that just like showed up there, and like they all know who he is. Oh, he's the Winter Soldier. He was an Avenger. It's Congressman Barnes. But he feels a little bit less coherent to the team because he didn't go through the things with them that they all went through. And here is, because this is why this movie is so fascinating to me, and I think why it's so focused, and again, that's one of its strengths, is let's be real, Tanner.
Oh, okay, I'm ready to be real.
Ready to be real? This movie's like, it's really just 2 very long sequences. Like, the first half of the movie is going to the bunker, being in the bunker, getting out of the bunker, and then being in the desert after the bunker, right? That's really one long sequence. True. Then, there's a little bit of middle stuff, and then there's in New York.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah, you're right.
It really is 2 long sequences.
There's the opening of
it's a setup,
the table setting, but you're right. Like the 2 longest sequences of this film are very defined.
Yeah,
it is the bunker / the
desert,
the limousine, and then the New York stuff.
Yeah, because and I don't know. I mean, I like that those sequences are really dug into, and I think again another reason why this movie feels very focused is it's very much like this happened and this happened and this happened. Ostensibly, this movie probably takes place over the course of 5 days, 6 days, something like that. There is,
you mean from like opening sequence to close?
yeah, but I mean, there's some elapsed time when they travel to and like they go from like Nevada to New York. Like that's like a 2-day trip.
I don't know. Alexi did it like overnight, essentially.
No, it took him well over a day. That's why he hasn't slept in so long, Tanner. He's been going, but yeah, I don't know. It's very condensed, and so there isn't time for other plot threads and other things to happen, and like we don't really travel around the world. This is a very American centric film, and I think that's a really interesting choice because it means that I do feel like these massive sequences, the desert bunker and the New York part, are really fleshed out. They really explore what's going on with these characters and how they're tackling each step of these situations they're in. And I think that I actually really like that because especially in the bunker, it is gruelingly methodical. Like they have to figure out who each other is, how they're going to get out of here, can they work together, how are they going to get out of here, can they work together. Like it's a really interesting cycle of like working together, getting better at working together, and then by the end of the movie, I really do feel like for the most part the team dynamic is very earned because I've seen firsthand the very methodical process these people have like gotten to know each other.
There is never a moment where they like break up. No. You know, there's nothing like, well, I can't be on this team anymore. Fuck you guys, I'm out of here. There's none of that. Which is a cliche that I'm happy they skipped over. So let's bob it up. Let's bob talk here.
It's bobbing time.
It's bobbing time, baby. Louis Pullman. Obviously, sort of infamously or famously, whatever, recast in this role. Sure. It was initially set to be Stephen Yeun in this role, and I can definitely see how Yeun would have done it differently. But I like what Pullman is doing here. Yeah. He is sort of baiting a lot of like sympathy and everything like that. A lot of laugh moments as he's just sort of sitting on the sidelines, very quiet, very reserved, very woo in how he is reacting to all these very prickly personalities around him. And then he gets a ton of lines where he just gets to like diffuse whatever argument is going on there. And it's the comedic timing of all that stuff works. It works quite well, honestly. But Tucker, there's a little more to his character. So we said it already, but this is a full spoilers review for Thunderbolts. Tucker, he's the Sentry. Can you believe it? He's the fucking Sentry, Tucker. He's the fucking Superman.
I can believe it.
And he's got a split personality. His Sentry, and he's the Void. And it's a metaphor for like bipolar depression, etc., etc. And when he's Sentry, I don't fully know if I buy his performance. That's one thing I think Yeun could have done a little better. Sure. I can see what he may have done with that like small portion of the character, frankly. And then he goes into void mode. Yeah. So
what do you mean by you don't get it? Like which element of that performance do you feel like doesn't quite work?
Oh, sure. I mean, like, when he has been, like, coerced by Valentina, and he's like, no, I am a god amongst men, and stuff like that. And I get that he's probably supposed to be, if I'm, interpreting this right, he's probably supposed to be, like, still quite unsure. In that moment, he's not quite comfortable in that role. We see him have that conversation. But then he makes this turn into, like, no, wait, I don't have to do anything you tell me. I am the most powerful guy in the world. I am a god walking amongst men. And then how does he turn into the Void again?
Because he strangles her, and then Mel like presses the fucking.
Oh, that's right. And then the Void takes over. You're right. You're right. But no, I think that sort of turn is effectively like 5-10 minutes of movie. Is an important sort of like table setting for him being the villain of the film now instead of strictly Valentina kind of being the villain. I don't know. I assume you really like Bob and you like Sentry, so let me know what you think.
All right, I'm going to steal my Thunderbolts, you know what I'm saying?
All right.
God. No, I really do, and I think that when you mentioned the characters earlier, I actually put Bob second in terms of Yelena and then Bob. I think that this movie is a lot more about his narrative than I was expecting, because it's ostensibly a superhero origin story for him. Within all of this chaos, it's him being exposed to the world of superheroes, learning that he has powers, and dealing with the ramifications of that. And of course, dealing with the ramifications of him being Sentry and Void and all of what comes with that. Where I do agree. I think that here's actually the real issue. Him going from Bob to Sentry is really quick.
It also ties into a weak villain thing with Valentina that I don't quite like about the film either. But like how he is just so easily swayed by her being like, no, like do this thing, become a Sentry, become evil, etc., etc.
She feels very corny in those sequences where she's like trying to convince him. I do give it a little bit of leeway because I buy Bob as this traumatized character that has very little going for him, and having someone prop him up and say you can do it is very fulfilling for him. And of course, it comes with the manipulation that Valentina is bringing with that. But I don't like how quickly it happens because he goes from Bob to full-on Sentry. Well, not full-on Sentry. And actually, here's the reason why I think this progression is interesting. Is he's got the suit, he's got the hair, he's got the powers, but he's not confident yet.
See,
he's standing there, he's puffing out his chest a little bit, but in his face and in his eyes, he's not ready for this. He doesn't know how to do it. He's trying, and he's trying to put on airs for Valentina, but especially once he sees people that he knows actually care about him a little bit more, he is very conflicted. You can see he's like, no, I don't want to kill you guys. Like, can you just turn yourselves in? And then this is the interesting part, and where I will push back a little bit on the flip to him like believing he's a god is to that point. He's flown, but he was like kind of out of his like depths at that point. He didn't really know what's happening, and he's moved a glass with his hand, his mind, whatever. But it isn't until the Thunderbolts show up and attack him, and he's able to handily, easily, with barely moving from the spot, beat them. Of course. I mean, it's a Sentry versus the Thunderbolts. That was the joke. That was a joke about this movie.
We all bunch and shoot?
Yeah. Jesus Christ. But once he's experienced that power rush and seen the extent to which his powers can take down people that previously he was in awe of, he was watching them do this cool stuff, and he's like, well, these are superheroes. Like, wow, look at these people, like how talented they are, this stuff. And then he's able to one up them. And so I think the flip is when he realized that he actually is more powerful than these people. And that goes to his head because he is, again, a very unstable character. And so I think the mood swings for him can be understood as an element of his unstable personality and in the highs and lows that this character experiences with, I guess, bipolar. It's not confirmed, but sure, we can say that. And so when he experiences the fact that he can actually handily defeat these people that he thought were ostensibly gods beforehand, then that he himself is a god. His ego has been boosted and fed so quickly and so fully that I do understand the shift to like, no, I don't have to do what you say because I am more powerful.
my thing then there is, because like I said, I don't know if that shift fully works for me, and then he becomes the Void, effectively a different personality that takes over, sort of born out of like when was Sentry around, like early 2000s. Well, of course we all know he was there from the very beginning of Marvel Comics. But like sort of born out of an era where it's like, well, what if a character had like split personalities and and they were like so different, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of thing. But we say it's split personality disorder, that kind of thing. And so before he fully becomes the Void, it's that moment that you're talking about. But then when we encounter Bob again in the sort of like spirit realm mind palace that he constructs for people, that he traps people in, the whole like delusions of grandeur, I am a god thing is dropped, and he is meek Bob again. So that I don't know if the carryover fully works. It's like it feels like a strange transition into him being Void, even though you could have just done that jump in the first place. I don't really know. Anyway,
I think that the meek Bob element is that this is his true self in his mind. He's projecting that he's very new to the powers. He's very new to the expression of that power of changing the power dynamic. And so when they find him and try to save him. They're saving the unsure, scared, lonely Bob that is who he's been for presumably most of his life. And his backstory of, okay, yeah, abusive father. I know that's like a dumb to kind of write off, but a lot of characters have that. But I also think that his loneliness, world traveling journey, and drug addiction are very interesting element of that character that are something that's not really usually explored in things like this. And so I think that watching him be like pared back down, a character that we know actually does have these incredible powers, but in his mind he's still very weak. And then watching him like get beat senseless by the Void in the Mind Palace, I think again it's he doesn't believe that he can't defeat the darkness within him. And here's where this movie, on an emotional level, on a thematic level, I think actually has a lot more value than most of $200 million blockbusters. Is this movie is, honest to God, it was way less action than you expect in a 2-hour superhero movie. It's a lot of talking about your feelings, and I mean that in the best way possible. It is these characters that are, again, very isolated, exploring the fact that they're isolated, and putting up the defenses of their quippy sense of humor or their aggressive personalities, but seeing through each other that there is this darkness, and especially from Yelena, who I think has a really fascinating character arc to where she goes from being super isolated and like totally like done with life ostensibly, to when she sees that there are others that she can help. That she can use her experience to inform.
It's the scene with Alexei and Yelena that sort of takes us into the final thing, where he mentions, this the junior soccer team that she was on, where she wanted to be the goalie because if everyone else fails, they can rely on her.
Yeah. When they make mistakes, which I think is key.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And I love that parallel, by the way, of them being ostensibly the junior varsity soccer team of superheroes. They're really just a bunch of kids. Like, they're squabbling and arguing, but they're learning to work together for the first time. Well, I know, but obviously we didn't know that about the soccer team going into the marketing, but I think it actually thematically really works of this is their first time trying to work together. They're ostensibly a group of kids on a soccer team when they're children, not knowing how a team works. And so that name, I think, actually carries a lot more like emotional weight and thematic value, knowing the context of it for me.
Well, what about their new name, Tucker? What about their new name? I don't know.
Okay, well, not quite done with that. The emotional part. Just to quickly wrap that up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something about.
Oh, sorry, I interrupted your point, so I thought you were going to continue. Okay. But yeah, I mean, it is very upfront with what it is about, especially with this final act that people are very complimentary of, and I think does work and is quite interesting. Is a lot more interesting than like a big laser beat 'em up, punch 'em up kind of thing. It's sort of being inspired by similar Mind Palace things. I see people bringing into conversation things like being John Malkovich and things like this. Yelena going through her various traumas and talking with Bob and things like that. And what I don't really have a whole lot else to say other than like I think it works. I think it's pretty interesting. Yeah. I think it is a fascinating move for a third act of a Marvel movie to be like delving into characters' minds and not like necessarily having to beat up like mind demon goblins or something like that. Even but they do a fair bit of like furniture flying around. It's kind of like that, and there's the chicken that they have to beat up, which is more of a comedic note than anything else. Yeah, I think I just think this moment works, and I think it is a fascinating move for the third act of an MCU film.
Yeah, and I can understand that being divisive for traditional MCU fans, right? People who are going for the build up to that climactic action sequence, which this movie largely eschews. I mean, it kind of the climactic action sequence of this movie comes 30 minutes before the end when the Sentry fights the Thunderbolts. But after that, I think that again, what makes this movie artistically and thematically work a little bit better for me is that it isn't afraid to then focus down on the characters and the struggles they're going through, because what this movie is a very clear example of man versus self. It's not man versus enemy. It's not man versus nature. It's
Mm-hmm.
battling your own demons. And there's a lot of really interesting lines in this last sequence that I love so much. Of course, you mentioned that Yelena and Alexei conversation, which I think is
Yep.
really fascinating, emotionally charged.
Perhaps one of the best acted
Yeah.
sequences in the entire MCU.
Oh, easily. Yeah. Because I mean, Florence Pugh is like having so much emotional baggage like
Mm-hmm.
come out in this moment. I love the parallel between her and the younger version of herself we see because she
Yep.
sees herself as a little girl. She
Mm-hmm.
calls her father daddy. You know, she is
Mm-hmm.
like having this because she was robbed of a childhood through all the trauma and all of the red
Yep.
room shenanigans. And Alexei, as someone who deeply wants to be a father and wants to be respected, seeing him have a moment where he can share his wisdom and experience with her, and be the light in her life that he is, I think is really powerful. And then she takes that inspiration and goes and delivers it to Bob, who is even more of a broken person, and literally like his mind is fractured through the
Mm-hmm.
trauma and the mental illness that he's experiencing. And the moment where she just sits on the floor with him and says, the like snarky advice I gave you earlier of pushing it down, I was
Yep.
wrong. I shouldn't have told you that. It's and frankly, what the rest of the sequence is about, I think this is really powerful. And like I'm getting kind of goosebumps thinking about it. Is bearing the worst parts of yourselves to those that you want to connect with. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a moment where he says, "Oh, this is the best room that I've found," and she says, "Well, show us the worst." And
Yeah.
I love that concept of exploring the darkest parts of someone's psyche and being okay with that and working through that together. And of course, it's very much like don't let the darkness inside you win. You know,
Mm-hmm.
even though you might not be in control, it is still part of yourself that you have to accept. Bob says, you know, oh, that wasn't me. That was that was the other guy. That was the void. But
Uh-huh.
what he has to come to face within this final sequence is that it is a part of himself. And so all of the pacing choices here, dialogue choices here are again very focused on like a genuine theme of cooperation being the thing that pushes back against darkness and isolation. And I love this repeated thing that Alexei's always saying of the light inside Yelena,
Mm-hmm.
and that she's
Yelena,
always
yeah.
been the one that can step into a room and brighten it up. And so, and then again, I mean, I'm really praising this movie, but on like a visual level and thematic level, the movie plays with shadow and light and dark, but it's also the light and the darkness inside of people. Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of stuff going on here, and also the void looks really cool with those eyes like shining out of that like pure darkness and turning people into shadows. A really cool effect. And then we get this confrontation at the end where it is corny, but I think corny in an earnest and genuine way of that, like essentially like putting your hands together and realizing that you have made a connection is what can push back against your inner demons and help you grow stronger and be better in the future. And that moment when they pull him off of the void and they're all like laying on the floor together, I'm like, see, that's a team I care about. I know they care about one another because they went through this. Each of them battled their worst internal demons to get to this point. And I'm like, that is powerful. That is good character writing. Now, I will admit, I wish we'd seen the inner demon rooms of
Yes,
Alexei and Ghost
it's
especially.
it's
But
the thing I get back to where
yeah.
like I don't know how unique are the demons that each of them are battling ultimately. Is it just I have a tragic backstory?
Yeah.
Well, no, I have a more tragicer backstory. Yeah, that's kind of where I come down on it. And Tucker, I think that everything you just said is well founded in the film.
Yeah.
I think it is all there. It is all there for you to dig into and look at for sure. Yeah, I also you sort of advanced the conversation a little bit further, but to just go back for a moment,
Sure.
on this third act thing, I would also say that I think it shows Jake Schreier as a director his interest and his skill set more so
sure.
than more so than making it like a big third act action
yeah.
set piece. Because I don't think the action in this film is especially good. I just don't think that's where his skill set lies.
Sure.
If we are to believe that he is the one who directed these sequences, like
Yeah,
I know that the point of that, like they all attack this sentry sequence is that it's not very dynamic
Yeah.
because he's just not moving. But I don't know. The execution of that sequence just didn't do anything for me.
Completely agree with you. I think
yeah.
that I understand what they're going for, and I think it's executed 75% of the way there. But there is this of this movie what is mostly practical effects, mostly practical stunts and stuff, which I think is for me very admirable and does actually make a lot of these hand-to-hand combat sequences work very well. And I'll mention a few, but that does not apply to the Sentry sequence, in which there's a lot of rubbery guys being thrown around.
There's some rubberiness to it.
You know, you watch Elena fall from the ceiling and like bounce off. I'm like, whoa. That's not there's no weight to that human body. So I think on a CGI level and on a like physics level, that fight definitely feels not as impactful. But I do definitely like a lot of these moments of choreography. There's that really cool moment of ostensibly Yelena's old boy sequence where she's fighting through the hallway of guys at the beginning.
Oh, sure.
With these long shadows.
The shadows things you're talking about, yeah, that they really open up the movie being like, look, we're making a movie that looks interesting. Look at this.
Yeah. And for me, I think they succeeded. And again, it's just these small moments of choreography. I really like this moment when all four of them are fighting in the bunker, and Taskmaster throws a knife, and then Elena dodges it, and then
catch it. Yeah.
Well, and then Ghost it goes through Ghost. She grabs it on that side. She does it, and John grabs it behind his head. I'm like, ooh, it's like snappy and cool. I think the action is good. It's not super memorable here. I'm not gonna. There's not an Avengers camera shot or
and
there's nothing impressive. I guess
it feels grounded. You can see a lot of the stunt performers a lot of the time, so that elevates it above most things that we've been getting recently. But a lot of people have brought up it's the best Marvel movie in years or whatever. Are we letting it get by on those laurels? And I'm not necessarily saying that. But I'm just it's certainly a refocusing moment that I hope they take going forward, even though many all of the films that they have forthcoming don't have the opportunity. Don't have subject matter that can beat this. Anyway, I brought it up slightly already. Valentina, Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I don't know. This is some of the clunkiest stuff to me, especially when we're in the first act and we're trying to hush. What's the Sentry Project? The Sentry Project. It must have worked. Wait, but that means that he's it's a lot of what is he doing here? What are we gonna do about it? I was like, good, for God's sake, do we need to do all this? That's where a lot of it just doesn't feel right. And then Julia Louis-Dreyfus also has a tragic backstory too, that we try to put a button on with the bad guy and the worst guy and everything like that. Just not especially moving to me, I would say. The one thing I will say is that I do after they have handily defeated the Void and rescued everyone, when she lures them in and into tricks them with the press conference, that moment. We'll say I like that.
So there's two elements to her character. I think as the corrupted politician, I think she's very good. Because she's had literally a decade of training on Veep to make this work, and so she's able to sell these moments of Your Honor, here's what it is, and the people don't. I've been working for you this whole time. I love those courtroom sequences. I love when she's schmoozing at the party floor and stuff like that. But so as the politician, I think she works, and comedically. And that I think she's solid with that, which of course to be expected from someone with her experience.
She has I think 1 billion Emmys, I want to say, for actress in a comedy series.
But I don't think she works as well as the dark side of the CIA character, right? Where she's the one that's clear all the evidence, that kind of stuff. I'm like, I don't really buy that. And her dynamic with Geraldine Viswanathan's character is I don't know. That feels the obviously least explored, most straight down the line, just all right, assistant.
And Geraldine Viswanathan, again, speaking of recasting like we did for The Void, was supposed to be Iowa Debris, and honestly, thank God, because her role in the movie is to just call Bucky 6 times.
Correct. And I don't know, press button on an iPad.
Yeah, she presses a button. She presses a button on an iPad. That's right.
Yeah, that is, I on a narrative level, I think it works. I like the the way that ties into the Sentry, that she, as this Shadow Ops figure, ties into all these characters, and then it does give them a very personal reason to want to fight back against her. I think that on a script level, it's all very tight in terms of motivations. But I think on a performance level, she's too jokey for me to feel like she's like a serious threat. So it's hit or miss for me.
Okay.
But she's not the one I expected to be the most mixed on, but I'm just like,
fair point. Whatever. So we should probably hit our last topics here and wrap up in relatively short order. Anything else with the movie proper that you want to talk about, or should we talk about post-credit scenes?
I really like the scene where they're going up the elevator shaft.
Oh yeah,
it's very extended. It's very methodical.
Yeah, I was also waiting for them to get to that, because I was like, oh, they can't all fly. We have a very cylindrical sort of thing that's not too big. I was like, okay, when are we gonna do the thing where we all put our we all like form a sort of shape to climb up? I thought it was gonna be like an asterisk sort of shape thing, where they all their heads were in the middle. But no, I mean that's what I would have done if I was in that scenario, which I guess their plan probably worked out better.
Wait, sorry, you would what? How would you connect each other? How did you grab onto each other with your heads in the middle? What the fuck?
So like you're like a skydiving sort of pose where you're like
Jesus Christ
with the floor, and you're like all your heads are in the middle and your legs are still on.
And you're gonna do that for a mile?
I guess so. I don't
Jesus
know.
Christ. No, but yeah, I like that sequence, and I especially like the moment when they get to the top and they're like, well,
no what? Yeah. And I think a lot of the comedy here works. Like I said, my crowd was very reactive. They were almost too reactive to some of these jokes. I was like, Jesus Christ,
it's
guys,
not that
funny. It's not that
funny.
funny.
Yeah.
The other moment the moment of not comedy that got them though was when the little girl gets evaporated. Did you react to that one too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I was as soon as I saw like the lone girl standing there, I was like, well, she's gonna get fucking shadowed. She's gonna get voided. And then as soon as that happened, I was like, well, everyone's coming back.
I agree. I actually think that on like a stakes level, it has two functions. It is visually and like you can imagine experientially. What the fuck? Holy shit! Like, what the fuck is happening? That would be terrifying. On our narrative level, we're like, okay, they're probably coming back. But I like and they don't like that everyone comes back, because I think it does mean that Bob / the Void is less of like a megaton, he's killed a bunch of people character that has like all this baggage. But it also is like, it's a little bit, actually there's really no stakes for the end of this movie. Like a couple people died, but like
it's the third act issue that a lot of MC movies will have, where it's like the giant world-ending thing. Okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
But on a comedic side, I just quickly want to mention.
Okay, here we go.
Alexi's so funny, dude. I mean, his role really in this movie.
David Harbour's very funny.
I've never seen a superhero character like this on a team before, where he's the embarrassing dad. He like shows up and was like, oh god, and he's like, yo, my friends, I love this team. This is my team, and everyone's like.
I like all of his Eastern European Soviet sort of reference jokes and things like that. It's good. It's
the
good.
light inside you is dim, even by your Eastern European standards.
European standards.
Yeah, that's really fucking
pretty
funny.
Good. Good joke.
Yeah, I love
Tucker. 5 minutes post-credit scene and scores. Here we go.
Oh, you want me to talk?
Yeah, I mean, hey, they're the new Avengers.
Yeah, they are.
Who could have seen that coming? But there's also the Sam Wilson Avengers that are there. And they're like having a copyright infringement lawsuit going down. But then the Fantastic Four show up. I will say, this post-credit scene was much hyped. Everyone's like, don't look at the credits. They spoil it in the credits. Don't look at it. I was like, oh, okay, credits. Okay, so there's like a character that shows up that's interesting. No, it's just
the music.
Is it literally? It's the Giacchino Fantastic Four score, I assume. But no, like it's the Fantastic Four ship, and I was like, oh yeah, they're just letting you know the next movie. Oh, interesting. Wow. Okay. But no, like I think you get to see a little bit of the dynamic. You get to see a little new Avengers logo and everything like that. Apparently, I saw some interview from Jake Schreier that is it seems like a scene from Avengers Doomsday, effectively. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I like this a lot. I like that this scrappy team of characters who aren't really good at what they're doing have been thrust into this scenario, and they're very much out of their depth. I like the dynamic with, Bucky's the only one who's actually experienced this kind of thing before, so he's like trying to give some guidance, but Yelena is actually the leader. And Walker's, honestly, he's not really changed. He's kind of just and Ghost is again
still
kind of
prickly
there.
as hell. It's a small thing. Since speaking of reactive crowd moments, they fucking lost their minds in that credit sequence when it was the magazine cover of John Walker riding his bent shield. They lost their goddamn minds.
That's pretty funny, but like.
I couldn't believe it that they got that big of a laugh.
I like that credit sequence a lot, by the way. Like all the headlines.
There's like Hollywood Reporter magazine covers and stuff like
that.
The
heard around the world.
Yeah, exactly. It's good. It's good.
It is
yeah, I like that stuff. I don't know. And then there's like the joke, the obviously like the joke post mid credit scene with the Wheaties box and everything. Our friend that I went with did say, like, just count how many different facial hairstyles that Alexi has throughout the movie. Post-credit scenes included. I was like, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I wonder what David Harbour was up to while they were filming this, doing a bunch of different stuff. Anything else to say about the prospect of them being the new Avengers team, Tucker?
I expected it. And the Fantastic Four showing up in the main universe makes sense to me. And so there was nothing surprising here at the end of the movie. Everything.
I would agree.
Taskmaster dies. We didn't talk about that. Whatever.
Who gives a fuck? Who could have known? I mean, I didn't catch about 15 minutes of the movie after that because I was weeping openly in the theater at the loss of my favorite character, Taskmaster.
Who gives a fuck?
She gets one line. I would say she gets one line.
Yeah, like maybe two with like the mask on. I don't fucking know, but
yeah, maybe. Tucker, 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10, Tanner. 9.2 out of 10.
9.2 out of 10.
Love this movie. I was surprised. Like, here's what really surprised me is I saw it, and then I was like texting people about it, and like trying to be like, oh no, I really enjoyed it, and then I was thinking like, I could go see it again right now. I'm interested enough to go see it again right now, and here's the biggest strength of this. I now am more excited to see the Thunderbolts in the next Avengers movie than a lot of the Avengers. Right? I'm like, I don't really care to see fucking Joaquin Torres again. I don't really.
Tucker, wait a second, you don't?
I'm not really interested to see Shang-Chi again.
Tucker, are you feeling okay? Did you get your head checked?
But there's
you don't want to see Joaquin Torres?
Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll see Thor again. Like, that's fine by me. But
I like
the
Thor.
Thunderbolts on an emotional level and a character level, I think are a lot more compelling than what a lot of Phase 4 and 5 have set up. Like, Ant-Man's gonna be Ant-Man, Thor's gonna be Thor. We have these known quantities, but this feels like a fresh dynamic. These characters feel new and interesting, and that's the strength of the MCU, is getting you to care about characters you wouldn't have otherwise. And I'm like, no, I can't wait to see Yelena and Alexi and Walker again and Bucky. Like, this little squad and the interesting scenario they've been thrust into is totally different from what these other characters have experienced. And so they're going to be that extra sauce. Now, are they going to pull it off? This is so much stuff to deal with in the next movie. They're still working on it. They're working on the script right now. It's supposed to come out in a year.
Tucker, I think they started filming a couple days ago. I think they started filming on Monday, actually.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if they're going to pull it off, but I do think they've made a chapter of the MCU that I feel a interesting personal connection to, and I think it is much more well delivered. Like, there's not fluff, there's not extra things, there's actually less plot holes than I thought there would be, and so I had a great time, and honestly, it was even better on a second watch. So thank you everyone very much for watching our review of Thunderbolts. We'll see you next time.